Since the start of the war, the Ho Chi Minh Trail, the enemy's main supply route into the south, has been a thorn in the side of the Americans and the South Vietnamese. After years of heavy bombing failed to sever the trail, a 1970 ground incursion into Cambodia finally succeeded in destroying a massive amount of enemy weapons and ammunition. Now, U.S. and ARVN commanders hope that a similar assault against the northern end of the trail, located in Laos, will result in the destruction of an even greater amount of supplies and disrupt enemy operations long enough for Vietnamization to take hold. Codenamed Operation Lam Son 719, the plan is to send an armored South Vietnamese force speeding down Highway 9 to the village of Chapon, which is believed to be a major enemy supply depot. At the same time, U.S. helicopter units, including Major Bob Kluel and his men, will insert ARVN ground troops north and south of the highway to act as a blocking force and destroy any additional supply caches in the immediate area. In total, 12,000 South Vietnamese are heading into Laos. And for the first time since American forces took over primary military leadership, they will do all of the ground fighting. A congressional amendment enacted a month earlier prohibits U.S. ground forces from setting foot outside South Vietnam. Lam Son 719 will be the first real test of whether or not the South Vietnamese military is prepared to lead the war by themselves.
Right as we're about to take off, a couple of my pilots ask, who the hell are we supposed to talk to on the ground in Laos, since none of the ARVN we're dropping off there speak English? I tell them not to worry, because we've got translators standing by. But in the back of my mind, I have a terrible feeling that we're heading into trouble.
Heavy fighting has broken out in Laos again today after 3 days of...
4 cameramen are reported missing in Laos tonight, and it's believed that they were killed in a helicopter crash.
One of the journalists killed covering Lam Son 719 is a friend of UPI correspondent Joe Galloway. Galloway was last in Vietnam during the Ya Drang Valley battles almost 6 years earlier. His boss now requests he return to take the place of his friend.
Although I had fought to get there the first time, I left there thinking I never wanted to come back again. I had seen the war, and I thought my part of it's over. I told my wife, and she said, you can't do that. You're still grieving for your friends, and you're going to go there and put yourself in the same situation? And I said, well, I have to do it. And she said, well, if you go, I may not be here when you come back. And I said, I may not come back. I began to think we're all supposed to die in that place.
Galloway arrives during the second week of Lam Son 719 and finds the military situation even grimmer than he expected. Nearly 60,000 NVA are massing to launch vicious assaults against the 12,000 South Vietnamese. The armored column is stopped only halfway to Chapon. Finally, during the third week of fighting, a quick decision is made to break west and establish 3 landing zones, known as Lolo, Liz, and Sophia. With the armored column still bogged down on Highway 9, ARVN and U.S. commanders plan to helicopter approximately 1,600 ARVN ground troops into these LZs in the hopes that they can jumpstart the advance to Chapon.
Oil 1-2, can you pick up auction going into the LC?
Get that altitude.
Yep.
Major Bob Kluel and his company are among the 30 choppers selected for the missions at LZ Lolo.
And Chalk 6 has taken fire.
Dr. 05, this is 36. Say your location.
Jesus, man, what the hell is going on out there? Over the radios, we can hear the choppers ahead of us. They're taking heavy fire from all over the LZ.
2-9er is the lead. Our lead aircraft was hit. Charles 2, take over the flight. I'm going down to look for which Dr. 5 is going to go down here. That's it. No, he said better again. I don't know where he went. We're taking fire. I saw one aircraft explode, and I saw the other one.
I look down, and it's like the terrain is moving beneath us. There must be several hundred enemy soldiers, heavily
camouflaged, all moving together like a carpet, you know. And then as we got close to the landing zone, began as a mass to shoot at the helicopter.
Keep moving! Turning to case on, over.
Within minutes, 2 of my choppers are shot down. Over the radio, I can hear our pilots calling for rescue, but nobody can get down to get them.
Kluel and the remaining choppers are determined to rescue the 8 downed Americans from their company. For over an hour, they circle the LZ. But with their fuel and ammunition nearly depleted, they are finally forced to head back to the base at Quezon.
I have no contact with my leadership at the present time.
When we get to Quezon, everyone's exhausted. But there's no way I'm going to leave our guys out there. So I gather everyone together,
So
and I ask the
you
guys,
know,
I say,
I
look,
said,
you know guys are
still alive out there, and so we're going to go back out and get our guys, make an effort. You don't have to come with us, but I'd like to see a show of hands of those that do want to come with us. And sure enough, everybody raised their hand.
As we head back towards Lolo, I feel an incredible sense of pride. This is what being part of a chopper crew is all about.
In March of 1971, South Vietnamese ground troops are in battle against the North Vietnamese, and for the first time, they are without U.S. advisors or ground support. Only U.S. air crews, including Major Bob Kluel and his choppers, are in the thick of the fight. They are speeding towards landing zone Lolo in Laos to rescue the 8 men from his company who were shot down by the NBA.
My mind's racing a mile a minute, running through every possible scenario. Only one thing's for sure. We've got men down there, and we aren't leaving without them. These men are some of the most courageous, most dedicated soldiers I have ever met. Every one of them knew exactly what kind of hell was out here, and yet not a single one even hesitated at the thought of coming back for their friends.
In total, 7 choppers are shot down and 2 American lives lost at LZ Lolo. But thanks to the courage and determination of Kluel and his fellow pilots and crewmen, no American, dead or alive, is left behind.
In all my years in the military, I've never been more proud or more awed by the bravery of men.
Three days later, the push continues as 120 American choppers lift off to deliver 800 additional ARVN ground troops within striking distance of their ultimate target, Chapone. arrive to find the NVA have stripped the village of almost everything of value. Chapone is not even close to being the massive enemy supply depot military commanders expected. Over the next 3 weeks, as the 17,000 ARVN troops now inside Laos begin to withdraw, the North Vietnamese lay siege to those furthest inside the country. With their troops surrounded and outnumbered, inexperienced South Vietnamese commanders begin to lose control, forcing U.S. choppers to come to their rescue.
Pilots risk their own lives to save them, going in again and again. Some of them are being shot down 2, 3 times a day.
3 times a day. They'd be shot down, rescued, go back, get another helicopter, fly back out, get shot down again. Absolutely insane. You go in the club at night, and all of their pilots and crew had their name tags on cup hooks hanging behind the bar. And you could come in and take a look, and those who got killed that day, they turned upside down. So you could scan the roster, as it were, and see who was alive still.
By the time Operation Lam Son 719 concludes, nearly 3,800 ARVN have been killed. 253 Americans are dead, and over 1,100 wounded.
It was a disaster. It was supposed to prove that the South Vietnamese were competent and capable and could take over the American role. That was the graduation
exercise. But I'm afraid all it's shown is even though the South Vietnamese soldiers fought valiantly, their leadership is nowhere near ready to take control of this war.
But that is not the message President Nixon delivers to the nation.
Did the Laotian operation contribute to the goals we sought? I've just completed my assessment of that operation, and here are my conclusions. The South Vietnamese demonstrated that without American advisors, they could fight effectively against the very best troops North Vietnam could put in the field.
They wanted to spin it as a success, but that it should be amply evident to anyone who looked at the situation and be able to understand this war is lost.